Hey guys, I'm a Rail Rider. One of the best looking amusement parks I've ever been to is DollyWood in Tennessee. Everything they've done with this park is just amazing, from the gardening work all around the park, and even to the delicious cinnamon bread. Being an amusement park, of course they're going to have roller coasters, and since DollyWood is known for their pretty cool coasters, I'm going to rank all 10 of them worst to best. Let's get into the video. 10. Whistlepunk Chaser. It's a dead giveaway that this coaster would be last, as it's just a mild kiddie coaster. I never knew this was a coaster before making this video, so I never got the credit, but you could just tell that all the other roller coasters are way better than this. Whistlepunk Chaser is a Zamperla kiddie coaster with a max height of 13 feet and has 260 feet of track, which is terrible, let's be honest. The layout is a single helix, which is plainer than most kiddie rides, but after all, is not meant to be thrilling, which is fine, as there's other roller coasters for that. 9. Blazing Fury. When I was making this list and looking at all the coasters, I thought they were all pretty good, including this one, so don't think it's a bad coaster because it's at 9. Blazing Fury is a still enclosed coaster, which is like a dark ride but on a track. If you've ever been on this or Fire in the Hole at Silver Dollar City, then you know that this doesn't really feel like a roller coaster. The only thing that really makes them roller coasters are the two drops. This coaster has a max height of 22 feet and a max speed of 22 miles per hour, which is only when the drops come. There's 1,500 feet of track, which is decent. I enjoyed seeing the pretty cool scenes and animatronics, but besides that, there's nothing else much to say about this roller coaster. 8. Dragonflyer. Dragonflyer is a still suspended coaster made by Vekoma. This is a pretty unique ride as you're seated like a floorless and make turns and twists at 47 miles per hour. The top height of this coaster is 63 feet and has 1,500 feet of track. For this being more of a family coaster, I would say it's pretty fun. The turns are sharp, which are nice, but besides that, there's really no other elements besides those turns and little drops. You should still ride this ride for the credit though, or if you just feel like a tamer ride. I would say that the bright green color looks great with the fresh grass as a match. 7. Fire Chaser Express. This is a pretty well-made coaster. This coaster stands at 78 feet and goes 35 miles per hour, which is fine. What makes this ride pretty good is the amount of unique elements they have. This includes 2 switch tracks, the launch is tire propelled, and even a show section. This coaster heavily relies on the story, and it's a story that actually makes sense on a roller coaster, which is pretty cool. When you're in line, you hear the speaker say that there's a firefighter academy, and we are recruits. We are reported there's a potential fire, and we have to go save it. While this wild ride happens to have twists and turns, drops, helixes, and more, you finally reach your problem. You stop at a Brea fireworks. It gets caught on fire and unleashes the very big firework, which launches you backwards. But while this scene, the track switches, so it brings you back into the loading station. This is a pretty well accomplished story, and it was easily the best part, but the mild elements do put it down. It's still a great ride though. 6. Mystery Mine. I don't know where to begin with this coaster. This might be the strangest coaster I've ever been on. This Gerstlauer Aerofighter has a max speed of 43 miles per hour, and it has a max height of 85 feet. Let's go through this really confusing layout. When the train gets out of the loading station, it has this dramatic drop. At least that's what it looks like. It really isn't that big of a drop as you see there. Now you're in the dark section. It's themed like a mine, hence the name. After some twists and turns, the first real element of this ride is a vertical lift hill. They make this look like the final finale as it's 80 feet tall, but it only brings you to the outside section where there's another little drop with some turns. It brings you back indoors again for guess what? Another vertical chain lift hill, but this is where Mystery Mine redeems itself. A fire effect goes off and you're shot down. You do a heartline roll and a dive loop, both very great elements, and you're back to the loading station. The last part, as you could tell, is obviously the best, and that's why it's up here. Another helping factor for the ride is that it's really good theming. Even though the layout of this 18,000 feet of track is weird, it's still a must ride. You could say that the real mystery of Mystery Mine is its layout. 5. Big Bear Mountain. This is DollyWood's newest ride, opening May 12th, 2023. Big Bear is a Vekoma launch coaster, and for it being a family coaster, I really liked it. This coaster has 3 different launches throughout the ride, and has elements like turns, twisted hills, and micro bunny hills. This coaster's force feels pretty good, and it feels fast at a max speed of 48 miles per hour, and a top height of 66 feet. It's so smooth, and the elements flow so well with each other. There's also about 4,000 feet of track, which is great. Like most other of the roller coasters at DollyWood, This one also has a theme and a story. In this story, you're trying to capture a bear that's on the loose, and you have to go on a wild adventure to find it. This is Vekoma's very first family launch coaster, which is cool, and they did a great job. If you haven't had the chance to ride this yet, you really should. It might be a long wait time, but it's worth it. 4. Tennessee Tornado. Tennessee Tornado is an aerodynamic looper. If you haven't been on one of these before, they're known for being very, very rough and have restraints that do not help. But Tennessee Tornado was different. It was really smooth and made the ride way more enjoyable. The top height of this coaster is 163 feet, and the max speed is 63 miles per hour. This is a pretty long coaster, having around 2,700 feet of track. There are 3 inversions, which are 2 vertical loops which flow nicely, and a sidewinder. This is when you do a half loop into a corkscrew. You can find this element from a lot of coasters from the 80s and 90s, including this coaster, which opened in 1999. There's also non-inverting elements like 2 overbanked curves, which is a deep turn. This coaster is filled with force, and I really enjoyed it overall. 3. Wild Eagle. Wild Eagle, or Mild Eagle, which some people call it, is a B&M wing coaster. It's kind of like Gatekeeper at Cedar Point. Mild Eagle is a real thing that people call this ride, as they think it's not too thrilling of a coaster. I would have to disagree though, as this 210-foot ride was pretty fun. Wild Eagle's top speed is 61 miles per hour and has 3,100 feet of track. There are 4 inversions, which is pretty good. These inversions include a vertical loop and a 0G roll. These 2 elements were the most memorable part of this coaster. I think the reason people think Wild Eagle's tame, or all wing coasters for that matter, is because they're super smooth. I think if the ride was a little rougher, it would be less tame. Sometimes having a little roughness is better. An example on this is wooden roller coasters. If they were super smooth, then they wouldn't be too fun. The same thing applies to wing coasters. This is probably the most underrated ride on this list though, as I enjoyed it a lot. 2. Thunderhead. This is another very underrated ride. Thunderhead is a GCI wooden coaster, and it got a really good refurb lately, and made the ride a whole lot better. The max height of this coaster is 100 feet, and the max speed is 54 miles per hour. The elements of this coaster are milder, of course, for being a wooden roller coaster, but it's still filled with energy, and it whips you around. This coaster opened April 3rd, 2004, and has had its fair share of ups and downs. The thing that got this coaster to the 2nd spot is the airtime. The amount of ejector airtime you get from this coaster is wild. It almost feels like you're going to fly out of your seat every turn you have. I really enjoyed this coaster as it's one of my top 10 favorite wooden coasters ever. 1. Lightning Rod. This probably isn't a big surprise, but here we are. Lightning Rod is an RMC hybrid, which means it has steel and wood in it. Lightning Rod was opened June 13th, 2016. It had a launched lift hill, and it was fast. It was so fast, it wasn't good for the roller coaster, so they had to slow it down. Then you pop up at the top of the lift hill, when you're met with a small overbanked curve, which has a pretty good amount of power. Then you plummet down your 165-foot drop. You then have some airtime hills, which are really, really good. I would say that this coaster has better airtime than Thunderhead. There are 2 double downs, back to back. This is when there's a drop, and then another drop after that. This coaster zooms past the 3,800 feet of track at 73 miles per hour. Another thing to mention is that this coaster is on the side of a pretty big hill, so the terrain you see is really cool. RMC is my favorite coaster manufacturer, and you could probably see why. This ride will go down in the history books. The only bad thing about this ride is that it goes down a lot, so if you're lucky to see it open, then you really need to ride it. Well, I hope you liked the video. These videos take a long time to make, and I would appreciate it if you liked and subscribed. It helps a lot and motivates me to make better and better content for you guys. DollyWood was an amazing park, and I see why they've won so many awards this year. These rankings were just my opinion, so comment down below if you would change any. I want to hear what you guys think too. Thanks for watching, and with all that, I'm out.